I feel American right now got two different systems. It's not justice for everyone, depending on the J6. So can you talk about yesterday, the sentence for the J6 biggest and another J6? One got 15 years, another one got 17 years. But I think compared to Antifa, that's totally different country, different system. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. If you look at the riots in 2000, billions of dollars in property damage, hundreds of people, especially police officers, injured, had bricks thrown at them, frozen bottles of water thrown at them, hit them in the head. All of the damage that was done, the violence that was done, and the sentencing was minimal, if at all. The prosecutions were minimal. We have the one case where a couple throws a Molotov cocktail into a police car, burn out a police car, and get practically nothing as a result of that. Now in J6, I think because the prosecutions were here in Washington, number one, and secondly, the J6 defendants were regarded as they're just Trump supporters. So what? Let's throw the book at them. Let's give them maximum or even above maximum sentences because they were there because of Trump. And I think that's where we see the double standards of justice. The sentences for many of these defendants, I think, were excessive. I didn't follow every detail of it, but I would like to know the details of it before I went along with it. Now for me, anybody that actually deliberately harmed a police officer should get years in jail. I don't care if J6 or BLM or anybody. To me, that's not tolerable. I was a street police officer for 6 years, almost 30 years in the FBI. Anybody that fights with a law enforcement officer deserves going to jail and having a large sentence. But what we don't know with the J6 case is that did they have the opportunity to review all of the evidence collected by the government? We've heard that there were 14,000 hours of videotapes, and for the most part, defendants in their trials that their defense attorneys asked for, under federal rules of criminal justice, copies of those tapes or a chance to review those tapes, and it sounds like most of them were denied. Now, I don't know in this case if they ever got to review a tape of themselves in the building, what exactly they did. Did they engage in violence against a police officer? To me, that would make a huge difference in the prosecution. But we just don't know that. And then the reporting that comes out on this case and in many cases, I think I've really lost confidence in the ability of journalists to tell the truth, or even if they're not trying to be deceptive, to just misreport. We don't see the data that's necessary, the reporting that's necessary to know what an individual defendant did or did not do. An example of the false reporting that came out is on the day of the riot, you had CNN anchors like Anderson Cooper and others that said that police officer Ziknik was beaten to death with a fire extinguisher. Turns out Tucker Carlson shows video of him just walking around inside the rotunda, not injured, not a problem. And later, the medical examiner says that the cause of death a couple days later was natural causes. But that was put out on CNN and all of the other networks that he was beaten to death by a January 6th rioter. So when you see that kind of false reporting, whether it's deliberate or accidental or negligent on the part of a journalist, it makes it hard to believe what actually occurred with each of these cases.
I think a lot of American people, they are still sleeping. They don't know this case so important.
Well, how would they know it? Even if there was reporting about it, you don't know that it's true reporting. You don't know if it's accurate. So that's the problem. And then the videotapes of all of these, the thousands of hours of tapes that were not made available to the public, much less to the defendants at the time of their trial. I've heard of many, many cases like that where they were not allowed to see any of the videotapes concerning the activity that day, which might have helped them in their defense, or might have shown them walking around not being violent. Yes, trespassing, okay. Yes, obstructing the Senate proceeding, okay. Those are not activities that warrant even a year in jail, I don't think, much less 15, 20, 70, some of the excessive sentencing that's been done in that case because of a bias against them, because of, well, they were there to support Trump. And I think that's what's led to them getting such severe sentences and such extreme efforts to prosecute them by the Democratic District Attorney's Office or U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C., and then go on with juries, grand juries. You know, in the District of Columbia, last election, 95% voted for Biden. 5%, maybe as much as 5% for Trump. So what kind of support or even fairness would you expect people in this District of Columbia to afford these defendants?
So in the future, do you have any suggestion for J6s? They just waiting there?
Well, I think what's going to eventually happen is that these cases will be appealed. But right now, you know, how much money do these defendants actually have to appeal the case, to be able to go forward with it, hire the attorneys? And in most cases, you know, I have seen interviews of people saying, you know, when the government knocked on our door and said, okay, we're going to charge you with this offense or that offense, and you're going to spend 10, 20 years in prison, or plead guilty, and maybe you won't get a severe sentence. You'll get a lesser sentence. And for some of the people looking at that, you know, their children are young, their families are young. If they spend 20 years in prison, you know, the children will all be moved out of the house. Everything will change for them. And I think that and the idea that fighting these cases, it costs money to hire attorneys, to hire a law firm to do the research, to try to sue the government and get copies of those films so that you can see them. All of that for many of the defendants was impossible. And for them to get a public defender, I can only imagine in this district how hard they worked to defend their clients.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Yeah. Thank you for all your patrons support us, watching the live stream. We will see you soon in the Freedom Corner. Thank you.